Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Dr. Christopher Scott Wyatt for a second episode where we continue our discussion about neurodiverse people. Marty, the session with Dr. Scott is just very enlightening, very informative, where we're learning or reinforcing we're all different, and it is a matter of learning, adapting to. There are some neurodiverse people who have a little more struggles with some others. We discussed in this episode how it is we can adapt to those who are maybe taking on a project they think is too difficult and may want to give up too early, easily, but it is a matter of establishing rules and determining what the sweet spot or the strengths are of the people we are working with. Marty, what are some takeaways we've gained from Dr. Scott in this episode?
Ron, I'm so glad we're doing these podcasts with Dr. Scott. He explains the difference in these children and how we should adapt to them because they are just as valuable as any other person. They are smart. They can succeed. They have to find their niche, and they will. It is tough on parents, but I hope there are many parents, caregivers that are listening to these podcasts with Dr. Scott, understanding how to adapt.
It's another great opportunity to learn. Let's listen and learn together. Dr. Scott, really good to have you back with us. For our listeners who may be joining this conversation for the first time, I want to encourage those listeners to go back to our first episode where we discussed some of the basics of neurodiverse people. Dr. Scott, I'd like to begin today by asking you, for the neurodiverse person with whom we're working, who might feel that some task is too difficult to do, can you suggest to us how we can work with that person to maybe make it more palatable, or whatever the term would be? I don't want for them to give up and walk away. How do we help them process, maybe that's the term, difficult projects, but don't give up?
There are two issues there. The first is whether or not the task is difficult or one that simply doesn't appeal to the person. We know that individuals with neurodiverse traits tend to focus on what their interests are and neglect other areas. So, for example, a science student who really loves science, that's what that individual wants to be as a scientist, may not take seriously the history class. It's not that history is difficult, but because it's not interesting to that individual, the list of excuses will be long. They will say it's too difficult. I don't have the time for that. But what it might be is they're just not interested. And that's something we have to determine. Is too often we assume that it's because of difficulty, when often it is the person is blocking a task that he or she does not find appealing. So that's the first thing, is find out whether or not it's really about difficulty or it's a lack of commitment.
All right.
And they're both obviously challenges that every teacher encounters. I certainly encounter it with my students, regardless of whether or not they're neurodiverse. And for many of them, especially under 21, right? We are talking about teenagers and young adults who are not fully able to comprehend the consequences of their choices. They don't understand that if you don't pass the required course, you can't take the course you want. If you don't do the homework you don't like, you can't do the sports you do enjoy or the activities you do enjoy. So the first thing to do is set up a real concrete understanding of whether or not you agree, whether or not you like it. These things must be done. And because a lot of autistics are rule followers, they like things in black and white. If you can explain, you must do this to get to the next step that you want to do, that often is an important framing of the challenge, is you have to do this to do what you want to do.
That makes sense. And I really appreciate how you framed that. Let me put this in just a slightly different context. And I'm going to use our granddaughter, who is neurodiverse, as an example. She likes history, just to use that as a topic. We want to help her learn history by doing a diagram. That is elective. She doesn't have to do that to graduate, and she is being homeschooled. As she thinks about a diorama of, let's just pick a topic of World War II, she thinks of it as taking too long, it's too difficult, and we get some pushback to that. Now, in the context that it's elective and it doesn't have to be, do we need to be very careful not to push too hard?
I am working with our oldest to explain to her that if something is set as optional in class, like you might want to take notes, mom and dad take priority, and we say you must do it.
Okay.
And that is the only way that we have found to make things clear to her, is when school or the curriculum says something is optional, mom and dad are still the final arbiters. And we will say, no, that is required of you by us. It is required to go on to the next step that you want to do. I know that might sound harsh, but sometimes when something is optional or perceived as optional, it becomes, I'm not going to do it. I will give you 10 reasons why, or I will just sit there on my hands, but I will not do it. Our strategy right now, we're dealing with this in computer science. She's like, well, they said I don't need to take notes, so I'm not taking notes. It's like, yes, and your grades are suffering. You will take notes. You will take notes and you will show them to mom and dad. Well, I don't. Okay, that's it. If you want to have time on your bicycle on the weekends, if you want to go to your friends, you will do what we asked, which is, here's a notebook, put your notes in it. We will review them with you. And by making it a black and white with a strict consequence, it's a framing she can understand. If we told her we would really like you to take notes, then she's not taking notes. We would like you to becomes, well, then I don't have to do. And you cannot make things optional. Unfortunately, and if my department told me that my annual review paperwork was optional, I would skip it. It's total nonsense. Nobody enjoys filling out online forms. Total waste of my time. But the reality is, if I want to be renewed to teach next year, I must go through these really stupid forms and click the boxes and do the paperwork. And it's a black or white. Now, I'm old enough to know that it's a black and white, but a child isn't. Even a 20-year-old is not. They don't understand consequences. Sometimes we have to tell them the consequences and hold them to them, whether they want to debate us or not. And as I said, it's not even just a neurodiverse thing. It's a maturity thing for many people. And then you add in that autistic, socially mature, slightly delayed in some areas, and other areas that are more advanced. But there are things you have to just say, these are the rules. I know you don't like them, but these are the rules.
I want to take that just a little bit further. I'm very interested in your earlier comment. You said it's somewhat in passing, you're learning. So here we are talking with a PhD, but every day could be a new learning experience for you. That to me is very educational and encouraging. Do we need to express consequences in a very calm voice and make sure they know we're not threatening, being loud, argumentative, anything like that?
I don't know that we can alter our personalities significantly, but I do know that when I tell the oldest, okay, you need to put away the computer, you've lost your electronics for a few days or whatever it is that, there are consequences. Whether I do it frustrated voice, soft voice, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters to her is I have taken away her toy. What I tell parents and caregivers is we all have our own approach and vocal tone and body language that we may or may not be able to control. Myself being autistic, I'm told I sound intense all the time, and my daughters know that. They know I sound rather blunt, but it is, you broke the rules, you lose the computer, hand it over to mom. They've all understood, now why do I say hand it over to mom? The reality is I'm scatterbrained and ADHD. If mom puts the computer somewhere, she will remember where it is. If I put the phone or the computer or the tablet somewhere, I will forget where it is and the child is just without it. So mom knows where she puts things. She keeps order in the household. So it is not that I'm saying mom is the bad guy. I even say, remember, mom will know where she puts it. Mom will make sure it's safe and secure, but hand over the device to mom. We have very set punishments in our house. If you are not doing your homework, you will be doing extra yard duty on the weekend, which is normally done by, mom and dad this time of year. It's time to clean weeds, time to do yard work. So, the little one will be out there with her bucket pulling weeds this weekend. And we're certainly not going to work them any harder than we would expect of ourselves. But for them, this is, oh my gosh, I want to be on my bike. But, you have to have very set punishments that are rigid. You can't waver in them. Otherwise, they get used to the idea that they can wait out the consequence of the bad decision. With school stuff, it's even more important because they don't see the consequences. They don't know that not doing their history test this year is going to affect them next year or in college. They cannot see that. They don't have that future insight, that cause and effect way off in delayed gratification. They can't do that. So we have to set those parameters and say, you need to do history. You may want to do computers, but you're going to do the history homework because all of your homework is important. Mom and dad have said, grandma and grandpa have said, all homework is important, all of it. I think that approach clarifies that you have expectations and you're going to stick to those.
I think that's great. To set the rules, and all of us need rules, and be resolved that we're going to stay with those rules. Let me turn the topic to association, social. There are some children, and it seems to be more so in school than not, but then there's some adults who tend to reject neurodiverse people simply because we don't, my perception is we don't understand them. And neurodiverse people know when they're being rejected. And certainly we do as well. But Marty and I are particularly sensitive to, that may be the term, of our granddaughter being rejected because people don't understand her. I don't know if your daughters go through the same type thing, but I'm very curious how you do work with that, or how you would help us work through those type situations.
I would say that myself and my daughters, we do not always recognize when we are either being invited or excluded. We don't always understand those social signals or social standards, certainly don't understand sarcasm and insults all the time. So it's a challenge for me to comment on being aware of the rejection. I am generally not aware of something like that until it's past the moment, and the same with my daughters. So I may ask one of my daughters, why aren't you playing in that group? Why aren't you doing that activity? They'll just shrug. I wasn't asked to play. I'm going to go play my thing. So it's not as clear cut in our family. The isolation that we see among young people today is certainly affecting all students, whether they're neurodiverse or not. It is affecting It's affecting especially middle school and high school. And one of the reasons for that is, I believe, electronic devices. Everyone's staring at their phone, everyone's staring. So when we look at the data, we find that the number of typical students who were having daily interactions with peers has dropped dramatically. It's down to something like 28%, according to an article I just read. So there is I don't want to really, I hate it when people say there's an autism epidemic, but I think it fits with this, that there is an epidemic of loneliness.
Yes.
There's a lot of people not connecting and not doing it well. And because nobody's doing it well and everybody is isolated, I don't know how to address that for neurodiverse individuals when all of my students and many of my colleagues seem to be isolated from any social groups, social organizations. In the past, before COVID, I would have said, get involved with whatever your family's involved with, whatever their church is, whatever their civic groups are. For my girls, they're in Girl Scouts, they're in the YMCA. But even in those, it's been really hard. My oldest, her troop basically vanished during the pandemic and has never really returned. I believe there's only one other active member now. Boy Scouts saw a similar drop for many reasons, not just the pandemic. Youth sports are actually in decline, even though many parents think that it's not. It is. It's more and more students are choosing not to play sports. So what do we do with the neurodiverse individual who's feeling rejected? I think the first thing to do is find out where the family does have some activity with outside the family, adults and teens. Find places where there is socializing that can be monitored and guided. That used to be churches, but we now know that less than 40% of Americans go to church on a regular basis. That's declining much more rapidly. I would expect it's going to be down below 30% within 5 years. People sit at home and watch a screen, or they stare at a small screen, but they're looking at screens. They're streaming, they're playing games. And this is making it more difficult because if the child's neurodiverse or the teen is neurodiverse, how do you get them involved when nobody else is involved?
Sure.
Angelina has been severely bullied from 4th grade on. She's being homeschooled now, but it seems no matter where she goes and wherever she goes into, people reject her. Her social skills, I think, have been socially, she has trouble being social.
She likes to hug. Maybe she should ask to hug before, and she does. But there's some people that I guess I would categorize our granddaughter as having far more acquaintances than actual friends. And so it seems that that's the rejection type thing. They just choose not to be closer to her at social gatherings.
I don't believe my youngest has any friends. I think she knows her classmates' names and she will say they're her friends, but there is no indication that they have reciprocated or that they are her friends. She will say, so-and-so is my friend. And you're like, oh, well, do you know anything about that person? No, not really. And sometimes she'll say, there's my friend. And you say, well, what's your friend's name? I don't know. Okay, this isn't a friend, sweetie. We've got to work on this. There's nothing that we can do to teach that and overcome it without the help of the other teens and children. And engaging them is increasingly difficult, as I said, since they don't have the social skills now either. Teaching people to be nice is difficult when nobody's interacting with anyone. Our oldest has friends. She is currently grounded, as I said, from technology and some other things, but we actually made a decision on Sunday she could go to a farmer's market with one of her friends, because we know that her autism makes socializing so difficult. The one thing we would never do as a punishment is take her out of a social setting. That's a consequence we're not going to stick to. There are some social settings we would say, no, that's a special treat and you don't get to do that. But normal socializing, we would certainly never take away from either one because they're so poorly equipped at it in the first place. Myself, I'm certainly not good at socializing. It is a common refrain in my evaluations as a faculty member. Skip the social things, not interested in them. I don't go to the morning coffees. I don't go to the afternoon, the dinners or the teas. I'm just not interested in those things. I have no desire to do anything other than my job and go home.
Very interesting you would say that. I'm now very curious. Would you see a benefit in, I'm searching for the terms, but maybe structuring a type environment, selecting the people after not interviewing, but knowing them, that these are the right people who can effectively interact with and actually be a friend to the diverse people, or am I approaching this far too structured?
Well, what we rely on is as I said, the Girl Scouts. The scouting is one way that we were able to, you meet the parents, you meet the family, you find out what their interests are, and you can find shared activities that help guide the interaction. So if the girls are doing a build day or a STEM day or a nature day, it's a guided activity where they interact. And yes, it's almost like school, but at least they're interacting and everyone is expected to interact. Outside of that, we have really struggled to find ways to encourage others to accept and tolerate, especially the youngest. Our youngest is very large for her age, very tall, not large in any other way, but she's 5'2", 5'3" at age 10. She's massive. And when she wants to hug somebody and runs up to them, it can scare them. It can scare her little classmates. They're looking, you have these little classmates who are 4 foot tall. And they've got a 5 foot tall giant running towards them to hug them. They don't want that. She's loud. She is impulsive, and her friends just avoid her classmates. So she doesn't have those friend connections. We can sit down with her all we want to and say, let's play through this. Let's try to walk slowly to people. Let's ask them, may I give you a handshake or may I hug you? Let's talk these things through. But at her age, she is still far too impulsive to do that. Far too impulsive.
Do these children mature at a certain age, work through the social skills?
I haven't.
Very interesting you would say that. Our granddaughter is involved in a culinary class that is, from what we have been told, structured for neurodiverse children, but the leader, the senior person, I guess that's her title, and we have not been to these classes, but from what we're hearing from our daughter, the senior person seems to have difficulty accepting our granddaughter and her social skills and so forth. And so our granddaughter is very aware of that's, I'm going to use the term rejection. We're uncertain, well, our daughter is uncertain, if she wants to continue with the class that she originally thought should be helpful to. But I don't know. Maybe the hope is greater than what the reality is. I'm stammering for the right words.
Is she interested in the cooking?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, very definitely so.
Then I would keep it going.
Okay.
The reason for that is what's going to happen in most situations is you find that one or two individuals in the class that you can talk to about the food or the cooking. You may not form a standard friendship, but it's at least someone you can talk to about the ingredients, the process, what you're making. That may or may not turn into a friendship, but having those shared interest activities is probably the best way to at least support the possibility of social skills.
The main teacher has threatened to kick her out of the course because she's not doing, or it doesn't seem that she's doing what the teacher in the other areas that they're trying to teach her. For instance, she said she just doodles when she's supposed to be sitting down and listening to me. Well, we know Angelina, she's hearing, because this is what she will say to us. I just heard you say that. She may be in the family room, we're in the kitchen. I just heard you say that. She's taking to us. She's taking it all in.
The challenge with neurodiversity is that we're being held to the behavioral standards of the teachers. There's
Yes.
a standard in Texas they call SLANT. It's used in a lot of K-12s nationally. It's a very old philosophy of sit up and lean forward to be attentive, that proper positioning in your desk, that proper attitude when someone's talking. I know that I have a lot of neurodiverse students at the university who do take notes. They do doodle, they have fidgets, they do something while they listen, and they still are able to listen. Even today, we're not training teachers well to understand that the neurodiverse individual might need to keep busy while listening. I have a colleague who is extremely ADHD, and that colleague brings, I'm going to get this wrong, crochet and needlework. Will bring things to do during meetings, and we'll sit there and be crocheting or doing other forms of needlework, whether it's embroidery or cross stitch, listening, but not taking notes and taking it all in. But if this faculty member's not moving, can't focus. Now, that's something, thankfully, where the department understands this is ADHD and it's extreme. This is what some of us need, is to fidget or to be doing things. But that's a matter of sitting down with the instructor or the group leader or the team leader and saying, look, my granddaughter has autism and ADHD or has these needs, is neurodiverse. Keeping her hands busy allows her ears to be open and listening. You may not understand that, but this is how the disability is. That's what would concern me, is too often we need to educate the educators.
No, that is very interesting you would say that. What I'm taking from what you're saying is neurodiverse people can literally multitask, if that's the correct term. They can crochet, listen. Many of us think you can only do one thing at a time, but would it be generally true that some, maybe all neurodiverse people can multitask?
I think it depends very much on what the diversity is. ADHD, I have seen individuals that they absolutely will fidget. They need to stand, or they need some sort of sensory stimuli to keep focus so they don't get overloaded. I know others who need near complete silence. They need the headphones on that noise cancel. They need quiet. They need it, dim in the classroom without a lot of input. So I think it varies based on the sensory needs and the physical needs of that individual. I've seen the extremes where someone needs, as I said, complete silence, noise canceled, lights down, as little input as possible to focus on a speaker. Well, I know, as I said, a colleague who will sit there and cross stitch. Very different needs, very different needs. So it's a matter of sensory processing overload. It's a matter of language processing. Someone may be able to process language very well with other inputs. Someone else may need absolute focus on the speaker or the meaning's lost. Those are all things that are so different. And again, that's why it's neurodiversity, is it's so diverse. Myself, if I'm in a room and somebody else is even crinkling a bag, then I'm not going to hear the speaker. If someone's sitting there eating a bag of chips, I can't hear the speaker. I'm done. I might as well just not be there. So I think it's very dependent on the person. My oldest will doodle and she'll be listening. My youngest, if she's doodling, she's not listening.
That's very interesting. I think what I'm processing, you're saying that everyone is an individual. There's no stereotyping. You learn to know people for their talents and traits and what works well, what doesn't work well. And that's not necessarily limited to neurodiverse people. It's just learning the learning abilities or learning styles. Am I processing what you're saying correctly?
I would say so. I think that's why our youngest goes to a charter school where there are uniforms and strict rules and a points system. You will do this at this time and you will walk down this line, this painted line on the floor to get to the next classroom or whatever it is. Rigid structure, clear expectations. That's what she needs. Don't give her anything that will let her become distracted. Our oldest is in a very free-flowing, very tolerant school, pretty liberal on some of the stances they take with the dress code or some of the other issues. There's no uniforms, things like that. They have different things that distract them, and to set expectations and to reach their goals, they need different things. Our youngest needs to be told, this is what you're doing. Mom says it, dad says it. We've talked to the teachers and the teachers will back us up. The oldest needs to have a goal at the end that she wants. And then you can say, you want to play music on the weekend with your band, you need to do your other homework. You need to do, so she needs something that is, yeah, I don't want to do this, but if I want to be in music, if I want to be in swim, I need to do this. The youngest will just resist no matter what. She's just out there oppositional. So you just have to say what mom and dad say, what the teachers say, these are the rules.
Wow.
And one fidgets and one doesn't. My oldest will sit in the car. Yesterday, I had her for President's Day. By noon, she had read 2 books. And I don't mean, children's book. I mean, very thick science fiction, young adult, probably 600 page books, probably 9th, 10th grade level. She's fine. Sitting there in the car with her book, going with me on President's Day because she didn't have school. The youngest would sit there, bounce, vibrate, drive me nuts with the inability to sit still. She'd be paying attention, but her moving about would just be too much. She can't do it.
Let me ask you about reading. Does your older daughter just have a natural speed reading ability? Did you teach her that? For anyone who doesn't really enjoy reading, how can we make that a skill? We all need to learn to read. I mean, there's benefit in that. But is it a matter of finding a book that's particularly interesting? Is that where we are?
That's what we had to do. We had to go through book after book, series after series. The youngest is finally starting to read. She was a delayed reader. She is delayed with phonemic awareness, our youngest. She has some speech challenges, but it was finding the right books about dragons at the right point when she wanted to read about dragons, and it took off. She also likes a series called I Survived, which has different disasters or moments in history. So for her, it was finding the high interest readers that finally just clicked. The oldest, you just put a book in front of her. If there's a book in the room, she will go to the book and read it.
Interesting you would describe your daughter, your youngest daughter and our granddaughter have a lot of similarities. Our granddaughter likes dinosaurs, and I forget the name of the game. Oh my gosh, it is. I mean, get her on the iPad, and she could be fixated for hours playing this dragon game. And I will tell you, she knows everything about every dragon that's ever been out there, whether it's fictional or whatever, but she's just fascinated by it.
Finding the high interest thing. And again, that was really key. And we would not take reading away ever as a punishment or anything. Once we have something like that where the children are socializing or they're reading or they're doing something academic, that becomes something we don't want to use as a punishment.
Right. Dr. Scott, this is so good. I would, we have another episode scheduled with you. I would like to continue this type of conversation where we learn how to work with neurodiverse children, people of any age, be able to, I use the term frequently, adapt to, but it is a matter, I think, of know what to look for, know how to adapt, and be willing to accept. Those are just the ways I look at it.
Well, and what we have learned, and every parent knows this, is our children are different. We can't use the same strategies for success with either. We cannot have a single strategy. It just would not work. They're too different. One is very extroverted, does notice, like I said, the youngest notices that she wants to hug, she wants to run, she wants to be with people. She knows there's something off. She hasn't quite, but she still says everyone's her friend. She's still young enough that everyone's still her friend. And the oldest just doesn't care. The oldest is very much like me. She'll go to school, she'll learn, she'll come home, and you ask her, how was your day? It was good. They're different, and they're different expressions of neurodiversity. The little one is constantly in motion. I joke that she's a hurricane. I mean, that's just, she spins out of control. Just, that's what she does. The oldest, she does twitch a lot. She'll move her hands or whatever. She has the repetitive motion, but she can sit with a book for 4 hours, and it's no big deal.
Wow. Dr. Scott, I think in our next episode, what we would like to discuss with you is how can we maybe engender a very meaningful conversation? Some conversations, we would like to be able to understand how a neurodiverse person is processing things. What's bothering you? Or are you harboring different things? Some people are willing to discuss that. Some people are not. And I don't want to try to force it, but I want you to know we would like to discuss things with you. If we can help you process information, we'd like to help you do that. But sometimes it seems, nope, I don't want to take the time to do that. I'd rather go off and do something else rather than sit here at the table and have a discussion. If we could talk about that in our next episode, I think we would all gain a lot of information.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your audience, and I hope the best I can do is really say that I hope we understand our children are all different. Neurodiverse adults are all different. And the real challenge is to listen to their needs, observe their needs if they're not speaking about them, but, observe what they like and don't like, and try to tailor your interactions with the neurodiverse to what works. Too often, as I've said, we don't listen to any student, we don't listen to any child. And the key is to find out why they are behaving the way they're doing. When they behave obstinately and don't want to do something, they're telling us something. Then it becomes, why do you not want to do that? Well, it's hard. Really? I've seen you do hard stuff before. So what is it really? Well, I don't like that topic. Okay, now we have a different tack, but you have to really dig deep. And sometimes it's active listening, because you do have to prompt and you do have to ask questions. I know we only have a minute left, but yesterday I saw one of my students who hadn't turned in homework for a while sitting at a table. And I just walked up and said, there's an assignment you missed. There will be a late penalty, but I'd really like you to turn it in so I can read about your ideas. And he just looked at me like, you want to read my stuff? Said, yeah, it's not about the points. I want to know what you're thinking. Just him hearing that, I think, was a new experience for him. I was like, wow, someone's telling me they want me to turn it in, not for the grade, but because they want to read it. And that's what we have to convey to our young people who are neurodiverse. We want to hear them so we can help them.
Great. I think that is very sage, wonderful advice right there. Dr. Scott, thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom. We look forward to our next episode with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life's experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.